And welcome back to the now new, just in case everyone doesn't know, this is the first episode we have recorded of the former Ryan and Logan Fantasy Show since probably December of 2020. So we recently just started this back up. This is going to be the first episode in forever, and we are now rebranding to now First Down Fantasy, and we are no longer the Ryan and Logan Fantasy Show. But Log is still here with us.
Yep.
And we are still the same crew, and we're going to start pumping out videos for this month of August, trying to get everybody ready for the upcoming football season, which is 39 days away at the recording of this video, which is August 1st or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact days, but we're getting right into draft season now, so it's exciting.
This is one of the favorite parts of my year, when you get down to the end of August and you're ready to start drafting your fantasy teams, and you kind of see training camps are starting to open up now, and it's just fun to have all this news all the time now. It's
so good to have football news back. I mean, we're both huge football fans. We both follow other sports, but they kind of are all done. You're sitting here, it's like, where's some sports news? And then all of a sudden, all the football stuff is coming back, and gets you pretty jacked up.
There's nothing like the beginning of a football season that I don't know what it does for you, but it gives me this excitement in my soul where I'm just ready to go.
I'm a Chiefs fan, so I'm just excited for some more wins, another run to the Super Bowl,
Yeah, as a Falcon fan, I'm excited for the first 3 games until our season's over, and then I can just be sad about it and wait to see who's going to win the Super Bowl. So
it's the Chiefs.
It very well could be, but beyond the point. For today's video, we are going to be filming. We're filming now because we don't have visual yet, so we're still doing recording. And what we're doing today is we're going to be doing our QB rankings for the 2021 football season. And this episode is going to be quarterbacks 1 to 10. And we're going to give you my rankings, give you Logan's rankings, but we will give you our consensus ranking on where we think they're going to finish up this year. All right, and we will start off with the number 1 quarterback. It's very obvious. It's Tua Tagovailoa. No, it is Patrick Mahomes for me, and you have him in 1 too, Logan.
Yep.
So he's easily our consensus number 1. It's really no question that Patrick Mahomes is going to be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, because ever since his first year as a breakout superstar, he has been a top 5 quarterback every year he's played.
Yeah, the number 1 QB almost never repeats. So chances are you're not drafting number 1 QB, but Pat Mahomes is never bad. He will always be a positional advantage. So if you could say I'm getting the number 3 quarterback, I think I'm perfectly fine with that. Again, he's probably not going to finish as the number 1. There's always one guy who has this ridiculous statistical anomaly season, but he's a lock to be right up there. So again, you can't go wrong taking Pat Mahomes as the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah, exactly. If you're drafting quarterbacks, your first guy that you're looking at is probably, if you're going to take Pat Mahomes, you might take him first round. Some people will, but majority is going to be maybe late second, early third round guy, because he's just that guy that you need to have. Because Pat Mahomes, like you said, he has that advantage where he has a Travis Kelce, he has a Tyreek Hill, he has Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He has weapons, and they play a very heavy throwing offense. They don't run the ball a whole lot more than a team like the Ravens will, but they will throw it. And with Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, you can easily get 50-yard bomb TD passes all the time.
Yeah, and they revamped their O-line in the offseason, so again, the only concern would ever be injuries, which he has dealt with injuries in the past. Again, nothing I think that worries you going forward, but should be better protected this season, and should be a great year for him.
Yeah, I am easily confident in Pat Mahomes repeating as a top 5 fantasy option, because even as last year, he was second in yards per game, he was second in fantasy points per game, and even his rushing yards last season, he was averaging 20 yards per rush as per game as a QB, which is actually pretty good as a quarterback. Kind of have that around 20 to 30 range is what you're hoping to get out of most guys. And he's just the easy number 1. All right, now moving on to our number 2 quarterback out of Arizona. It is Kyler Murray this year. And Kyler Murray last year was kind of the dark horse guy a lot of people were going for, knowing that he could easily start pumping out big games. And he ended up being the number 1 quarterback in fantasy last year. Oh, no, sorry, he wasn't. He was the 3rd-ranked quarterback in fantasy last year. For a guy that was kind of not overly great the year before, that was an amazing finish. And I think a lot of that had to do with that his rushing attempts last year he was averaging 51 yards rushing per game last season, and that is humongous for a quarterback.
Yeah, that combined with the 11 rushing touchdowns, that's so big because his throwing stats were good. They weren't great, but that rushing floor and that extra boost with especially the touchdowns was huge.
Well, and especially in fantasy, he has these options of DeAndre Hopkins and Christian Kirk, and he has actually really good options on the offense. And if he's just going to scramble out for 10 yards rushing, and a lot of times on the goal line, he's their goal line back.
Yeah,
pretty much. Fantasy, that's 6 points. You can't get anything better from your QB if he's rushing in touchdowns all the time.
Exactly. And also, again, that's another team that has upgraded their O-line. They added, I think it's Rodney Hudson at center, another really good piece. So he should be better protected this year. And AJ Green coming in as a wide receiver. Reports out of camp have been really strong on him. He's a vet, but taking over for Larry Fitzgerald, I think that's an upgrade. So,
Where did you have Kyler Murray? Because I had Kyler Murray ranked at number 3.
I had him at number 2.
So yeah, we both really like Kyler Murray, and I think it all end of last year he wasn't performing as great, but he was still doing good. He had a little bit of injury issues.
He had a shoulder injury, which was pretty. If you watch the games, it was pretty obvious that he was not right. It hurt his rushing ability because he was trying to protect himself more than he would in the past. So I think assuming a healthy Kyler Murray, you're going to see a lot of bootlegs, a lot of getting out. They did a lot of read option runs, especially in the red zone, and you're going to get that rushing floor with the I think he's going to improve as a passer this year as well, which would be big.
If he improves as a passer, I can easily see him being another top 3 option at the QB position.
Yeah.
And he's going to be that guy you're going to have to pay up for him, but I think for a guy with his rushing upside as a QB, it's something that you're easily paying up for.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
All right, moving on to number 3 is Josh Allen out of the Buffalo. And, Josh Allen is almost in the same boat as Kyler Murray. He had a really breakout season. He was the number 1 QB last year in fantasy. That's what he finished as. And he has the same kind of thing that Kyler Murray has I'm sorry, I'm just blanking here for a second. Yeah, so he was the number 1 QB in fantasy, and he has the same advantage Kyler Murray does, which the rushing work that he gets. He averaged 26 rushing yards per game, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's for a guy that honestly had way better throwing ability than the Kyler Murray to have that extra rushing ability in there. That is something that you're really looking for. I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat it because a guy like Stephon Diggs, I've never really been that high on. So I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat what he did last year, and I think teams weren't expecting what was going to happen last year with Stephon Diggs being a monster. So I really like him this year. I'm not saying he's definitely going down, but I'm still not sure if he has that incredible upside.
Yeah, I think he will be a better NFL quarterback this year, but I think he's going to put up worse numbers. Last year, he had the 8 rushing touchdowns, which is huge. That's awesome. I think he could do something similar again, but he also had, 37 passing touchdowns and 4,500 yards. A huge part of that was that the Buffalo defense last year was not good. That was a bad defense. They have always been a good defense under Sean McDermott. I believe that they will be a good defense again this year. And if they have any sort of running game, because that was another issue with that team last year, they could not run the ball to save their lives. If either of those two things rebound, Josh Allen, even if he's a better quarterback, will not have the same fantasy impact. It's really he's no Pat Mahomes, but you saw with Pat Mahomes in, I think it was 2018, he came onto the scene, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. That was Chiefs team. They could not play defense at all. So every game was just a boat race, which is a lot of what happened with the Bills. He's become a better quarterback since then, but he hasn't matched the season because it's just everything worked out perfect. Yeah. So I think that's what you're going to see with Josh Allen. You're going to see a better quarterback, but you're not going to see the same statistical output, which means will he be the QB1? I would not bet on it. QBs almost never repeat as QB1 in fantasy. That's just not a thing. But I still think he's going to be a good and a safe bet for fantasy.
He's one of those, if you're going with these top guys, these top 5 to 10 guys at the QB position, you're always going to get somebody that you can rely on to put up numbers. And like you said, you're not going to expect them to get the number 1 spot because, like you said, almost it never repeats as a number 1 option at the position.
Yeah.
But Can he be top 5? I easily see him as a top 5. I feel like if he's not top 5, something happened, or it's just everyone else had an unbelievable year.
Yeah, I think like this year, I think Pat Mahomes to me is the clear-cut one, but I think 2 through 5 are all pretty interchangeable, as they're all awesome. I think they're all going to have great seasons, and it's just who you happen to prefer going into the year.
Yeah, and I would be happy with any one of these options. I won't be mad about any of them. All right, we're moving on to number 4. It is Mr. Dak Prescott out of the Dallas Cowboys himself. And this one is one of the weirdest ones to predict based on how his season ended last year with his 5th game breaking his ankle and people not really being sure if he was going to be the same Dak Prescott. Now, everything coming out of camp so far is that he's looked just as good as he did last year, and people are saying the injury isn't looking like it's affecting him at all, but that's not considered what going into a fancy season would look like. But injury aside, if he is perfectly healthy, Dak Prescott last year was averaging 371 passing yards per game in 5 games, and for the rest of his stats for 5 games, he was averaging the 371, 18.6 rushing yards per game, and he had, what was it? Ugh. Sorry, guys, I'm just blanking out. He had 9 TDs, 4 interceptions, and 3 rushing touchdowns in 5 games. And I remember, I was a proud owner of Dak Prescott last year. And I clearly remember he was putting up 30 points, 40 points a week. And he was easily the biggest factor in fantasy football last year because I drafted him in 6th, 7th round last year, and he was easily QB1. But can he repeat can he play like that for a whole season? That is another question we need to know. And can he stay healthy? Because with that big injury he had last year, you never know if he's going to be the same.
Yeah, I think, again, that O-line this year, they were beat up terribly last year. They had nobody healthy. I think that O-line is going to be a lot better. Like, you get basically Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, Lael Collins. Like, those are 3 stud O-linemen that we're all missing. And he still put up those numbers. I look at it, the season before, he had 4,900 passing yards. Like, that's a defense was bad last year. Like, it was probably the worst in the league on defense last year. Mm-hmm. Like, it was right up there. They didn't do anything to help it. So that defense, at best, is going to be average, but I would bet on it still being terrible. So I think it's the perfect storm. Like, I've never taken a QB high. I'm very firm on the you wait and you draft a late QB. This could be the year because I think Dak is going to be an absolute steal in drafts. I have him as my QB3. Like, I love Dak Prescott this year.
For me, I'm a little bit lower than you. I have Dak at 6 this year, but that's still like very high. And again, like the injury thing, it might scare me or other people a little bit, but you're 100% right. That defense is probably going to be trash again, and if it's trash like it was last year, he's going to have to throw the football all day long to keep him in the game, and that's perfect storm for him. And even on the goal line, if they're going to run him like they did last year, he's their goal line back with Zeke Elliott, and he's going to get those touchdowns on the goal line like he did, and that's humongous in fantasy. So I really like Dak Prescott this year. He's going to go high, and I think he's pretty much, if he stays healthy, he's a top 5 option.
Well, you look at the weapons there too, like Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, they're both really good wide receivers. Michael Gallup I like as a deep threat. Blake Jarwin missed all of last season. I'm still in on Jarwin. He was my sleeper tight end. I was so excited for him last year.
We were both in on Jarwin. We were like, okay, we're gonna have a good year, and he went out game one, and it's just like really
blew his knee out.
We got robbed of Blake Jarwin.
But I'm back on Blake Jarwin. Good reports out of camp. So, but again, like the weapons there, fantastic. Some of the best in the league. All around, what I think is actually a good quarterback, and that's going to need to score. It's the perfect recipe for that kind of blow-up season we were talking about with Josh Allen last year.
Mm-hmm. And with the NFC West, or the NFC East? Yeah, NFC East, sorry. NFC East being so bad, it's going to literally be a toss-up division again, most likely, so they're going to be in it to the end of the year, so don't expect them to be tanking games for a draft pick probably at the end of the year.
No, not at all.
All right, now to round out our top 5, we have Lamar Jackson at number 5 out of Baltimore. And Lamar Jackson is in the same boat as Kyler Murray and Josh Allen in a sense that his rushing ability is more known than his throwing ability. And just to prove that to you, it's just his rushing yards per game were 67 rushing yards per game. I didn't lie to you there. I said 67. and that is incredible for your quarterback. And Lamar's never been known to throw the football well, as he was averaging 183 passing yards per game and only had 26 touchdowns to 9 interceptions and had the 7 rushing TDs. But at the end of the year, those playoff games, and even I think it was against the Browns in the regular season, he finished the game throwing the football really well. And that's been the thing on Lamar forever. If Lamar learns how to throw the football properly, and it can be accurate and like decisive, he is so good. He's unstoppable. And if he does that again, like, I think Lamar Jackson could have the numbers he had in his MVP year, and he could be a fantasy monster.
Yeah, like not Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson he's going to be a top 10 QB. Like, he had kind of a nightmare season last year. Their offense in the first half of the season just couldn't get going. Teams had adjusted. They didn't have a kind of adjustment to the defenses, and it was rough. And then the second half of the season, he was awesome. Like, he was a league winner last year. So I think this year they've kind of figured out multiple ways to run their offense around the rushing game. The O-line, they're getting Ronnie Stanley back. Like, they lost
Orlando Brown.
I should know that.
You should know that as a Chiefs fan. Wow.
I can never remember his name, but they're getting one of the best left tackles in football back in Ronnie Stanley. Like, the O-line, they've had to do a bit of work on it, but I think it should be reliable, and he's going to run the ball. Like, that's what you're getting. You're getting a guarantee of 10 points. Well, I guess, what do we say, 67 rushing yards?
So you're getting basically
7 points right there.
Easily.
Before you count in anything else.
And you said he had a disaster season last year, and he wasn't necessarily a disaster, but he was a little bit of a disappointment where people were drafting him last year, but he still finished as the 9th QB for fantasy points per game.
Yeah, I think, again, like, first half of last season, they had a lot of issues in their offense. They started really slow. Teams had kind of figured out how to play the scheme that they were playing, but then the second half of the season, they made legitimate adjustments. They also started playing J.K. Dobbins over Mark Ingram, who didn't seem to quite have it last year, and it all kind of opened up for them. Like, and again, now they have 2 ways of playing, which they didn't have before. They have 2 different ways to run their RPO kind of run-based offense, which is big. You need to be able to play multiple ways to win in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love Lamar Jackson where he is, especially as, like, you know, you're probably going to be able to get him. You're going to pay up for Lamar based on the name status and the rushing ability of him. But I think this year you can really be confident that he's going to have a bounce-back year compared to where he was.
Yeah. Also, again, upgraded weapons there as well. That's always been the big question. They have Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, but Rashad Bateman he was one of my, like, I'm not going to claim I'm a draft person, but when I was hearing all the scout reports, I'm like, why is Rashad Bateman not higher? He's big, he's fast, he's got good hands. So that's what I believe could be a number 1 wide receiver that they took in the first round. You add in Sammy Watkins, which if he's healthy, he's a valuable wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So he finally has some actual
we do know Sammy Watkins will blow up for only week 1. And week 1. He'll go for 85 points, and then he'll never do anything again.
Well, then he's hurt the rest of the season.
Exactly. All right, now going on to number 6, it is the 7-time Super Bowl champ, Tom Brady out of Tampa Bay. And Tom Brady is the QB last year that a lot of people weren't sure about for fantasy because he was going to a new team, a new system. They weren't sure how it was going to work. And it showed in the first little bit of the season. Tom Brady was not really the guy that you were like, all right, he's going to be a solid option like he's been before. Yep. But then near the end of the year, he really started figuring out the offense. And going into this season, I have complete confidence that he has this system down. And it showed by them winning a Super Bowl that all those guys are coming back. Yeah. There's nobody on that team that wasn't there last year, and like everybody they had on that winning roster is back, and that's huge for the offense because it's their second year. Tom Brady's going to know the system well with all those guys. Yeah. They're going to be ready to rock and roll, so I really like Tom Brady this year.
Yeah, Bruce Arians' system is notoriously hard to learn for quarterbacks. Like, most quarterbacks that come into his system just can't figure it out the first season. You saw that even with someone as smart as Tom Brady. It took him 9-10 games to actually learn that offense. And then once he did, everything clicked, and that team was unbelievable.
And as you said, like, and once he figured it out, he never lost a game. Like, I think since week 10 or 11, they never lost a game after that.
I think it was they lost to the Chiefs going into their bye, and from then on, they took the bye week. They were figuring it out going into the bye week, but then they took the bye week. They got everything sorted properly. And then they were unbelievable.
Yeah.
So if they have that, again, they missed they were one of the teams I think it hurt them more because they had so many new guys not having a proper full offseason in training camp last year. So I think that's the team. They're going to be dangerous. They've got all the weapons. The question is Tom Brady too old? And I'm never betting against Tom Brady until I see him not be able to do it. Like I was shocked. I was just looking through his year-by-year stats. 4 straight seasons of over 4,000 yards. Like he had 4,633 yards last season passing.
Yeah.
Like he's insane. Like it makes no sense. So until he bombs, I'm just gonna keep running with Tom Brady. Like.
Yeah, I'm not going to be betting against Tom Brady because I didn't even know this when I was looking up these numbers, but Tom Brady had 40 TDs in 2020.
Yeah.
To 17 interceptions, to 12 interceptions, which is a lot of INTs for a QB, but that with the weapons he has there of Mike Evans and keeping Godwin and retaining Antonio Brown, and still having Gronk there, which is one of his favorite weapons.
Even I think O.J. Howard was hurt most of last year. He's never quite put it together, but he's got all the tools there too.
And even Scotty Miller, he was starting to figure it out at the end of the year with Tom Brady. So I really like that offense. I think it's going to be, they're going to go run shot on a lot of teams next year. So look what they did to just a 1/2 of the Detroit Lions last year. They scored 38 points or something on them, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I expect a lot more games like this year out of Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think he's going to be awesome.
Number 7, we have second-year standout Justin Herbert out of the LA Chargers. And Justin Herbert last year was a random start at week 2 based on medical doctors accidentally almost killing their own quarterback and stabbing him with a needle in the lungs, which is pretty sucky. But once he got in there, Justin Herbert was pretty much as comfortable as a cucumber because he was putting up big numbers from the start. He never really regressed that season. He had games where he was around average, but he had a lot of games where he was incredible. Yeah. And I really liked the sophomore year. He finished 8th. Let me just look at something here quick. He finished 8th last year in fantasy points per game, which as a rookie, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Averaged about 290 passing yards per game, finished with 31 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. And for a rookie to finish over 30 touchdowns in a year, I really like them going into year 2, having a better O-line, drafting Slater with their pick. They're still going to have Keenan Allen, which is one of the best wide receivers in the league. So I expect a really good year to Justin Herbert.
Yeah, they upgraded the O-line there a lot. As you said, Slater to play left tackle. They signed, I think it's Ryan Lindsley's the name. He was the Packers center, all-pro guy. That's a great add to the O-line as well. So that's much improved. I think the defense is going to be better this year, which is, again, that kind of worked out perfectly last year. They played a lot of close games. He had to jack it up. But Austin Eckler will also hopefully be healthy this year.
Yes, he will be.
And that guy, he's a pass-catching machine from the running back position. He's unbelievable at it. You add in, again, as you said, Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is really solid. They had a Jared Cook, I believe, too.
Yep, that is going to hurt because they lost Hunter Henry, so Jared Cook is a lesser version of that, but still, Jared Cook is a really good option at the tight end spot.
But yeah, and again, if you watched him last year, he looked different. You could just tell. As soon as he stepped out onto the field, this guy just has it.
He looked super comfortable, stepping back in the pocket, and he is not afraid to bomb it up.
Yeah, he's got a rocket of an arm. He can move in the pocket a bit. I mean, he had 5 rushing touchdowns last year, which is a nice add to have.
Mm-hmm.
He's the complete package as a QB.
He gives a lot of people the Patrick Mahomes feelings of this guy has the ability to have unbelievable fantasy output numbers. And he doesn't have as much as the weapons as Patrick Mahomes does, but I do believe he has enough skill to get to that point. I think a lot of it's going to rely on how healthy Keenan Allen's going to be, how healthy Mike Williams is going to be, because I guarantee you they're going to miss a couple games during the season because they always do.
Yeah.
So, but if they stay healthy, they're going to be a really tough team to play because their defense was hurt the last year. It's going to be better this year. And if their defense can stay healthy and be good, that's going to give Justin Herbert more time on the field, and that offense, when it was on, it was clicking and they were scoring quick.
Yeah, and again, it's going to come down to how well he learns a new offense as well. That's the only worry for me with him is they fired their head coach. They brought in a head coach who's a defensive guy, so I'm not exactly sure who's running the offense there at this point, but it will be a new system in some capacity. So again, I'm still going to bet on Justin Herbert. I loved what I saw from him last year. But if you're looking for what the red flag is with him, it would be new situation, new offense. Maybe they go a little bit more run heavy with a defensive head coach. But again, I'm willing to bet on the talent I saw there.
And I get a lot of people could be, like for myself, maybe I'm a little bit eerie that it's his second year and you know of the sophomore slump.
Yeah.
You've had guys like Baker Mayfield have a really good first year and have a very disappointing second year. But I think Justin Herbert's a little bit of a different animal here. I think he's going to have kind of a Patrick Mahomes type second year where it's not going to be as good possibly as the first year, but he's going to be very close and he's still going to be a really good fantasy option you're going to love to have.
Yep.
All right, moving on to number 8. It was almost the MVP halfway through the season. It is Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. And this one is interesting because, like I said, Russell Wilson at the beginning of the season for the first couple games was almost the consensus MVP until Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes kind of overtook him. And he was throwing up bombs to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett all game. And then near the end of the year, they just went back to their roots of rushing the football all day long. And I think that's something you want to look at with Russell Wilson. If Pete Carroll's going to allow him to cook, let Russ cook is what people say, then he is going to be an unbelievable option. But if they go back to the run game a lot more, he's going to be kind of just a low-end QB1.
I think Russell Wilson last year was kind of what he always has been. He did it a little bit differently, but this is one of the guys we're the most split on. I think you have him as your QB5. I have him as my QB10.
Yeah.
And I don't like having Russell Wilson as my fantasy quarterback. You know he's going to finish top 10 guaranteed. That's not even in question. He has always finished top 10. But he is one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks you've ever seen. He will throw up those monster 40, 50-point games and then follow it up with a 5-8 point effort. With QBs, that's again, I have him ranked at 10. I fully believe he will finish higher than that. But he is scary to have on a week-to-week basis because you never know what you're going to get.
I remember I was playing a guy who had DK Metcalf and the Russell Wilson had the stack. And like you said, he put up, for the whole game, put up 12 points.
Yeah.
He did nothing. And it was against the LA Rams who have a really good defense. And that's another thing I want to bring up is with Russell Wilson being in that division, the NFC West, having the upstart Cardinals, having the elite defense of San Francisco and the elite defense of the LA Rams to deal with all the time, that's 4 games where you're playing an unbelievable defense, and that's not even counting who else you're going to play during the season. And that offense is really good, but having DK Metcalf as their only surefire receiver, as much as I like Lockett is inconsistent.
Yeah.
But once they could stop DK and the rushing game doesn't work as well, they're kind of dead in the water. They don't know what to do.
The problem is they don't really have an intermediate passing game or a short pass. They've got the run game, and then Lockett and Metcalf are both primarily deep ball receivers. That's where they really thrive. So if you take away the deep ball and you take away the run game, it's difficult to do both, but if teams manage to do both, that offense just really struggles.
And another thing you can love about Russell Wilson is he does have the ability to get out and rush, because during the season he was averaging, look at this. He was averaging 32 rushing yards per game.
Yeah.
And as your QB, if you're getting anything over 20, 25, you're really liking that option, and that's what Russell's going to do. He's been known to just get out of the pocket and run. That's what he does all the time. And that's one of the upsides of Russell Wilson, because if he's not getting it throwing, you know he's going to bust out for a 20-yard run eventually.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
All right, now we're moving on to number 9, and it is the reigning NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers. I have Aaron Rodgers ranked this year at number 10, and Logan, you have him ranked at, what do you have him ranked at this year?
I have him at number 6.
Number 6. So we have him a little bit off, but he's going to be our consensus number 9. And you know what? Aaron Rodgers at number 9 might be shocking to people, being like, he's the reigning MVP. Why wouldn't you have him top 5? He's coming back to pretty much a similar team. But one of the things I look at when I ranked Aaron Rodgers where I ranked him at 10 was he had an unbelievable year last year. Aaron Rodgers, his touchdown numbers were insane. It was 45 touchdowns to 5 interceptions and 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
It was obviously an MVP season, but when you look at it, those numbers are very hard to repeat. And he wasn't even the top QB in fantasy last year. He's getting a year older, and with Devontae Adams also having an unbelievable year last year, you can't have both those things happen again to where I would have full confidence he's going to be a top 5 option. Can he finish there? Absolutely he could.
Yeah.
But with all those variables I just told you, like if you're asking like Aaron Rodgers to go for almost 50 touchdowns another year in a row, that is very difficult to do.
Yeah, like I look at it, his 2 seasons previous, he had 597 attempts, 569 attempts. This past season, he had 526. So the attempts were down. The yardage was similar. He had 4,442 2 years ago, 4,002 the year before last year, and then 4,300 last year. But then the TDs were 25, 26, and then 48 passing touchdowns. Like he threw a passing touchdown on 9.1% of his throws. The 2 years prior, it was 4.6% and 4.2%. He's going to drop back to somewhere near that level. Like, guys don't maintain the touchdown rate that he had last year.
Yep.
At least that's what theoretically, he could. He's talented enough. He's got the weapons, but, like, that's not something you can bet on. It would be a bad bet. So, if you see that come down, he doesn't really run the ball too much anymore. He picked up a few touchdowns on the ground, which he'll probably do it again, but I'm more comfortable betting on the younger players that I think will develop than an older player who coming off of... We've seen him come off years like this before, and he comes back down to what you would expect. It's just, again, it's what QBs do.
Well, and let's be honest with ourselves. If last year, for sure, Aaron Rodgers was not a highly drafted quarterback.
Yeah.
I think in our league, he was drafted in 10th, 11th round last year.
Yeah.
So, like, even the year before that, he was not drafted highly. So people did not have a whole lot of faith Aaron Rodgers was going to be up there. This was an anomaly year for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
We know he has that talent, but he did not show that the last few years to where you're like, oh, he's easily finishing there. So after a MVP season, I'm just going back on where I'm giving him the courtesy of being a top 10 QB based on his talent. But with all of the drama going on with Green Bay this year, like, I don't know if it's going to affect him mentally in games. And, like, I think this is probably his last year in Green Bay based on what everything looks like. So how much is he really going to be able to showcase?
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, that team has a fantastic running game. They want to run the ball. Like, that's what Matt LaFleur wants to do. He wants to run the ball. So, again, it worked out last year that Aaron Rodgers had a great season. I think they would prefer their QB has lower stats. Like, similar to the Seattle situation. Russell Wilson absolutely balled out in the first half of the season. I think part of the reason he wasn't as good in the second half is just that he didn't play as well. I think his actual level dropped a bit. That offense they were predictable a little bit. But yeah, like, part of it is they wanted to get back to rushing the ball. I think that's something you could see with the Packers this year as well, where they just pound the rock a bit more.
Yeah, they'll just pound the rock with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers might be taking a hit there. So that's why we have him ranked where we have him ranked this year. And to finish off the video with our QB 10 that we have ranked, it is Ryan Tannehill from the Tennessee Titans. And this one is one of the weird ones to predict because Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans are a very run-first team. Ryan Tannehill has never been that incredible QB option at fantasy. I think what really sends him up the rankings this year is that they traded for Julio Jones, which as a Falcon fan, it's sad to see him go, but still he's an elite wide receiver, still a top 5 option, I think, in my opinion, in the NFL. So if you have that to go along with A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, who can catch the ball a little bit, I think Ryan Tannehill has the ability to finish as a top 10 QB.
100%, yeah. Like, again, he's not a name that you hear the name Ryan Tannehill and you're like, he's unreal. But since he became a starter, all the stats have him up there among the top QBs in the league. Now, part of that is the play action system. Everyone's scared of Derrick Henry. But part of it is just that he's been a good QB. He's primarily play action, but again, with Derrick Henry, he's in play action a lot and he thrives in it. So the offense is going to change. Arthur Smith is gone. He's now the Falcons head coach. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But assuming they run a similar offense, I think, again, best weapons he's ever had. A.J. Brown, another year of progression. Julio Jones is unreal. I don't see how he gets worse.
Yeah, I think it's hard for him to regress from the last two seasons. And if they do throw the ball, like the was the problem with the Titans is Derrick Henry is an unbelievable running back. And if the run game was not working too well and they got on a 3rd and long, then they never really had the options to get a first down.
Yeah.
So, but with Julio Jones, this now opens up the ability if they want to throw it on 2nd down, they want to throw it on 1st down, or they want to get that 3rd and long. If you don't have Julio Jones covered, he's going to burn you. And if you don't have your best corner on A.J. Brown, he's going to burn you for 50-yard touchdowns all day long.
Yep.
And that's only going to help Ryan Tannehill because I've had Tannehill for the 2 years at some point in my fantasy seasons, and it was always he would finish at 15 points per game, like around there.
Yeah.
And all it would have taken was he just needed to get another 3rd down to keep the drive going when they were in the red zone, and then he could have had a really good finish.
Yeah.
But with Julio, I think really the X factor this year is Julio Jones.
100%.
If Ryan Tannehill cannot be a top 10 QB option with Julio Jones, then it was never meant to be a top 10 fantasy option.
Yep. No, I 100% agree.
Alrighty, so that is going to finish it up for part 1 of our QB rankings. Join us later on as we get through QBs 11 to 32. As always, thank you for listening to the First Down Fantasy. I am Ryan.
And I'm Logan.
And thank you for joining us. If you are listening, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. And we're going to try to get more videos out for the beginning of the season, which, like we said, it's getting very close. So hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.